Welcome to the Unwashed Asses, episode 71, recorded for Friday, January 11th, 2019. Alright, buckle in, we got a doozy. Dan had sent over a suggestion, and it was like, here's this thing that I found. I'd be curious to get like an Unwashed Asses episode on it. Like, sure thing. Thinking, it's another podcast. It's easy for me to form bullshit opinions on something. But then I listened to it, and I realized, fuck, there's a lot to unpack here. And I just finished listening to it again, just so I could be a little bit prepared and take notes and try to sound intelligent about it. What it was is a podcast by Jordan Peterson. I've never heard of the individual. Just quick bit of research. Looks like he's a well-renowned Canadian psychologist. Not going to go into any further than that because I don't really know. But we need to set a baseline for who this person was. But it was episode 16 of the Jordan Peterson Archive podcast, specifically on how to live a meaningful life. And let me flip over here to my notes. Where are my notes? There we go. Alright, so I guess we just have to get out of the way. I'm not sure what the point of the episode was. I understand the title is How to Live a Meaningful Life. But the arguments and persuasions that he brings towards his case ramble and are so disjointed and full of hyperbole and metaphor that it's hard to follow what it is he's trying to say. He will jump from topic to topic and example to example with barely a linking thread. And as such, it feels like a mess trying to listen to and follow the thread of coherent thought. Sometimes it'll take several minutes for a point to finally come through, loop back on the previous examples, and then it'll click and make sense. But in other cases, I'm fighting really, really hard to follow what he's laying down. And it could be a failing on my part, but you can tell he's definitely passionate about what he's talking about. It just needs to be presented in a clear or more concise manner. Because as I listened to it, my initial thoughts were, okay, we're talking about criticisms about music. And now we're talking about New Year's resolutions. Okay, well, is this going to be an episode about resolutions? And before that, not long after, we jump into symbolism with Buddha and Nazis and the swastikas. That then leads into motivational speaking for lawyers. And then we have chaos versus order and how water is symbolic of chaos. And ultimately it leads to responsibility. And responsibility is the key for maintaining a healthy life. And that's how we find meaning and purpose. And I'm going to break it down bit by bit. But ultimately, I did not get the vibe that this episode in its entirety talked about how to live a meaningful life. In fact, the closest that we get to living a meaningful life, not to jump the gun here, is the theory that we need to accept responsibility. And responsibility is the secret. It is the meaning of life, and through responsibility we find purpose that allows us to continue. I disagree with that. I find that way of thinking it's similar to my personal philosophy of the only true meaning to life is a personal meaning to life. It's what you ascribe meaning to, and everything is just a distraction. And if you're at the point where, like, I find myself, you're just finding ways to distract yourself until the clock runs out. And now that could be finding personal meaning and gathering responsibility and trying to make yourself a productive member of society. But in other cases, it could just be finding ways to amuse yourself until, again, said clock runs out. One example he points out, which is one of his more coherent ones, is how a child acts as a form of responsibility and as the ultimate meaning of life to a person, and how others may criticize that. But it's his allegory here is, it's as if a termite is chewing at a temple. It is ultimately a futile effort, trying to gnaw at this majestic and prestigious facility, because truly there's no comparing or even questioning a child's love or a parent's love for their child, in that it gives them meaning. But again, it goes into, to throw my own personal philosophy in, because, let's be honest, that's what this show is all about, is me, throwing my uneducated opinion on everything. Children do give purpose and meaning to life, but it's a scapegoat, because you're following the biological imperative that I have to procreate, I have to continue my species, not even for the purpose of continuing a name and a lineage, but I have to propagate my species further. There is a deep-rooted biological need to do. It's the same thing for any living creature. Eat, stay strong, fuck, reproduce, your part's done. And it's a similar concept to your own meaning of life. Once you've gotten your child, you've raised them to the point where they are self-sufficient, they are on their own, they are an independent organism, your role's done. You're over with. You have no real purpose any longer in life. You've succeeded in everything from a biological perspective. So that's why folks that ascribe their meaning to, I have to, go out and have a bunch of kids and raise them up and then be a grandparent, that's not true meaning. That's not true purpose in life, because everybody can do that. What is it about you that makes you special? What is it about you that makes you stand out from the crowd? What are you contributing on an individual level, aside from, I've met the biological imperative, I've raised these children, that made them themselves go off to do great and wonderful things? And a good example would be, Hitler's parents. What are Hitler's parents known for? Off the top of your head, aside from making Hitler. Was that their purpose? Maybe. It's a pretty shitty purpose, though. So that's why it comes down to us as the individual to find our own purpose in life and find a reason to keep going on, because, yeah, it is a sad fucking mess. There's not much to look forward to in life. But that's not... That's the fucking catchphrase of this goddamn show. This entire fucking show is, that's not what I'm here to talk about. Instead, here, what I'm supposed to talk about is breaking down this episode put out by Jordan Peterson. And I don't want you to misconstrue or take it that I'm attacking him. I was simply asked to provide input. I agree with some of what he said. I disagree with other things. But I'm finding it's going to be more of a criticism on presentation because of the points I'd laid out earlier. We're going to go, I guess, over my notes here, where the episode starts with he's proposing the idea that the only way music has great replayability is if you're always finding something new about it, some nuance or some different way of looking at it that makes it enjoyable time and time again. And once we've, quote unquote, mastered a piece of music, it's no longer enjoyable to us. And he has this idea that modern music is too chaotic to him. He can't wrap his head around it. And when you compare it to pop music is great the first 3 or 4 times, but after that, there's no real substance to it. And I agree with that wholeheartedly. But I don't think it's a matter of modern music being chaotic versus, pop music lacking nutritional value, or, being too orderly, I guess. It's too broad of a statement to ascribe so much significance and meaning to. It's too much of a black and white statement. I find that the music that you end up mastering, my personal case, or songs I've listened to for near decades now, and songs that I can play myself. And I know the intricacies of each instrument and how they all feed together and how the harmonies and main vocals. You look at a song like Bohemian Rhapsody. It's a song that everybody knows inside and out. It's a song that you don't always look at with a different perspective. But it's like a good hearty meal. It always fills you up and it always leaves you satisfied. It doesn't matter really what walk of life you come from. It's something you can always come to and enjoy. And you don't always have to take away something new. And in fact, odds are you aren't taking something new away from it because it's a song that's been around longer than you have. You know it inside and out, but it's enjoyable nonetheless. It doesn't fall into the area of pop music where there's little, as I said, nutritional value to it, where we have the same repeating chorus over and over again, the same repetitive beat. There's nothing really to it. It's good for 3 or 4 playthroughs, as Mr. Peterson said, but not much beyond that. Music is such a broad and pervasive subject that we can't say things like that. Modern music, not necessarily chaotic in my opinion, because it depends on what genre you're listening to. Even things like, speed metal, thrash, some of the, I guess, more stereotypically chaotic music. When you sit and actually listen to it, that's how music operates. There's always a pattern. There's always a rhythm. It's like you're taking pieces of a puzzle and you're putting it together, and it applies to each and every genre. Be it, the drum beat or the bass line. There's always a rhythm. There's always something that you can follow, and it's a matter of deconstructing it, finding that said rhythm, and then going along that journey. It's like following the current of a river. He gets then into setting goals, and setting goals are super, important. This is the part that confused me and made me think we were talking about like a New Year's resolution type of deal, but it ultimately led nowhere. I think it tried to tie into personal responsibility being the meaning of life, and that we can only attain responsibility by setting up goals. His bigger point, though, was setting the appropriate level of goal. You can aim for the stars and fail and feel shitty about yourself, or you could set the bar so low that you can literally walk over it, but there's no real sense of accomplishment. Both are points I agree with, but he doesn't really stick to any one philosophy. It's more of a talking point that provides him with examples to lead into other talking points. It's a way of looking at, it's scaffolding. It's scaffolding to prop up his other arguments. As such, I guess it needs to be more concise. It needs to have stronger structure. And you need to be able to tie back into it, because essentially what he's saying is that responsibility for the sake of responsibility is what provides meaning, or at least that's what I took away from it. I wish I understood it more, or could grasp what he's trying to talk about, so I could further break it down. But again, I don't know if it's just me lacking, not able to understand the nuances of what he's talking about, or that the presentation is so disjointed it's hard to do regardless. I relate it to faking confidence. And it's something I've talked about before, where the trick to gaining confidence is faking it until you make it. If you act as though you have confidence despite not actually having it, you create said confidence. It's something that, everybody talks about, but I don't see in practice a whole lot. And I believe it is a huge secret to, success. If you act with confidence, things will come your way. And it's something I've been personally struggling with recently. I have always believed that I'm able to kind of get my way when I want to get my way. It's just a matter of how hard I'm willing to work for it and whether or not I believe in it. I don't know if you guys remember that shitty book and video series called The Secret from several years back, where essentially you're projecting into the universe what it is that you want, and then the universe will reward you with it. Confidence works in a similar way, where if you believe it, other people tend to believe it. You just have to act with said confidence. Because you believe it's real, you in essence make it real. It's similar to acting with faith, which is what he touches on a few times. That by creating responsibilities, we create purpose in our own life. And it feels like I'm talking circles here, and that's frustrating to me. It ties back to the concept of you're killing time. The only real purpose and meaning that you have in life is that which you create for yourself. And that's true. There is no greater purpose. There is no greater reasoning. There is nothing grand planned for any of us. That's why it falls on the individual to create said purpose. And for that, it's a very astute observation, and I have to tip my hat to him. But he does it in such a convoluted way that it's hard to really recommend to others. There's a lot of digging and sifting to get to the heart of the matter. You know, there's good sustenance here, but you have to dig through a lot of bullshit to get to it. It's kind of like, I don't even remember who said the quote, but there are 1,000 hacking at the branches of avarice to one who is striking at the root. Or is it greed? Either way, it's a lot of wasted effort for something that could be simplified. And it's funny because he talks about things like chaos and order, and for somebody who looks so closely at those philosophies, one would think, and I'm going to link it here to Destiny, it's going to be amazing. In Destiny, we have a similar thing. We have the light and the darkness, and the darkness strives to simplify the universe and bring about order by reducing everything to its simplest form, whereas order believes that through complexity, life flourishes. And it's a matter of striving to find said balance, which is what Mr. Peterson gets at with the setting of goals, and making sure that it's at an attainable bar, but not an easily attainable bar, and that by challenging ourselves and realizing limitations, we can further push ourselves. His example with the lawyers was, they have a very demanding job. They have a lot that has to get done in a day, but they push themselves so hard that they burn themselves out. Whereas if they set aside time, in his case, you have 4 days of vacation time for every 3 months of work, you're refreshing yourself, or you're rejuvenating or recharging the batteries that allows you to work harder during those periods of work. It's all about balance. You can't really fall too far into one camp or the other, the darkness or the light. You can't have simplicity without a desire for complexity, and you can't have complexity without a yearning for simplicity. It's like when, you have Moose Tracks ice cream, which is one of my favorites. It's got, the peanut butter cups in there. It's got fudge. It's got caramel. It has all this wonderful flavor to it. But it can be too much at times. It's overindulgent. And there are times where, I just yearn for the simplicity of vanilla or chocolate. So it's about finding balance. And it's ultimately what I think he's trying to get at is something that was you know how on if you browse Reddit or Imgur or just the internet in general, they always have these clips of inspirational quotes. And I think the point that Mr. Peterson's trying to get at, and one that I personally believe as well, was summed up on Tumblr with the quote of, "How the fuck do people just stay motivated their entire lives? What drives you? I got out of bed once and I've been exhausted ever since." To which someone replies, and this is the key here, "You need to learn to hate life to the point where you want to get revenge on existence itself." And the following reply is best advice ever. And I truly believe that is some of the better advice that you can get in any situation is what motivates you, what drives you, what makes you what makes you get out of bed and do the things you do. It's like, me learning German out of spite. It's, what is your personal meaning? What is your personal truth? What allows you to be you and do what you do? So, yeah. It's good for talking points. I don't know that I can recommend it. I'm curious now about the gentleman and what other things he has to say, but again, while inspiring as a public speaker, it could use refinement. So, thanks for the suggestion, Dan. It got a lot more out of me than I thought it would. I don't know why I'm shocked by this, because you usually have good insight. But otherwise, yeah, if you have anything that you want to talk about, do like Dan did, shoot me a suggestion. There are many ways to do it. Twitter is a good one. Otherwise, email theunwashedasses@gmail.com. Again, theunwashedasses@gmail.com. Otherwise, if you want to, support the show, tell a friend. That's all I ask for 2019. Tell a friend. Get some traction. Let the roots grow. And let them know they can really get it wherever. And of course, if you want to go above and beyond, just donate $1 or $2 a month. That would be exceedingly awesome of you, and you will get the strongest of mental high fives from me. But otherwise, that's going to do it. We'll be back Monday. God knows what we'll talk about, unless somebody sends something in. But until then, we still look for an outro.